Hi again. Today we're going to make a small Millefiori glass ornament. Now this is like a Christmas thing that you might want to have at home, and you light it up on the inside. Unfortunately, the structure I used, which were small silicone balls that you use like over a thumb or finger, and then I filled them up with stuffing, was kind of a failure because they weren't strong enough. So I guess I do this over a silicone like mold next time. But anyways, you could see all those different types of beads. I like to have the ones that aren't actually called beads. They're called no hole because they don't have the bead hole through the middle of it. But the beads work fine. The hole for the wire doesn't really show that much. And as you can see, the beads themselves are generally about the thickness of normal stained glass. But because I don't want the foil to wrap around these glass beads, I guess you can call them beads, even though they have no hole most of the time. I don't want the foil to wrap around the edges a lot, because if you do, then it's going to encroach upon the design. So that's like a lot of the stuff that I do. I just foil the edge. So for most of these, I took my regular 7/32 inch black backed foil and I cut it down to like 3/4 of the width. Was a good width for most of them. As you can see, the one on the right, the circle on the right, was a little bit thinner. So for that group, I used like half the width of the foil. So you're going to have to judge it and change the width. Now you always want to keep all those, when you cut the long strip of foil, you want to keep that extra strip that you're not using, because there are times when you might want to use only 1/4 of the width of your foil. So I just kind of wind those all up and I keep them. And then the next time I have something extremely thin, which I probably will use in the next video, some that are very, very thin, then 1/4 of the width is just great. Now I'm using, and you can see I'm starting to get holes in my armature that I'm working over, because it's not strong enough. So it is melting with the heat of the solder. So yeah, that was unfortunate. But I mean, using these kind of little balloon things that you'd put on your finger or toe when it needs some extra support, when it's like, I don't know, you have peeling on your finger or something. These do kind of make the structure, you can adjust it pretty easily because it's really, really soft. But as you can see, the stuffing is almost falling apart at the bottom there. So you have to work quickly. Don't use too much heat, and your shape might hold together for a little while, but you're not going to be able to use this more than once. It's just not going to be strong enough. As you can see, some of these Millefiori beads you can get them round or you can get the flower shaped. The flower shaped, of course, are a little bit more tricky to foil because, you get all those little ribs of the flowers, but they are really fun. And so I am just tacking them together right now. I'm using only reds going into yellows. I'm not using any of the ones that are predominantly green for this project. So, I like to limit myself to a small color palette. I don't want to have like every color in the world necessarily on a piece. So, it's really up to you what you want to do. I mean, you can even have like only red on the whole thing, but you're going to have to buy lots of packages of these glass beads, because most of the time, at least when I've seen them for sale, they come in an assortment. So, you can get the round ones or you can get the flower shaped ones, but you can't really go by a color. Although you can, I've noticed, some places will sell them as like just beads for like a bracelet, and you can usually get those in a certain color scheme. But then again, you're gonna definitely have the hole going all the way through on that choice. And especially if you want to get the beads that are quite transparent, um, the hole that goes through will be more visible. So, it really depends on what you want to do. I'm wearing silicone gloves, and they're hard to find, but it's kind of nice to have gloves on because it helps keep the flux and stuff off your skin, and it also adds a little bit of protection against the heat. And silicone doesn't melt as much as other, like nitrile or latex gloves. So, your gloves might last longer and they might help dissipate the heat. Yeah, that's a nice big one. So, yeah, I try to like alternate the designs in this so I don't have the same flower next to the same flower. I mean, it's really up to you. You could do the whole thing and make a row of one type of flower and then a row of another type of flower, whatever you want to do. So right now I'm just tacking them together. And the reason I went up to the top of the circle there and then I'm filling it in, that was because my structure was falling apart and I wanted to be able to still have some structure there before. You can see the bead just kind of fell through. So I'm adding some pieces of silicone washers, and I cut them in pieces, and then I can just kind of shove them in the hole, and then that'll help hold the bead in place while I am soldering. It's kind of like hold it up because obviously, as I said, that silicone balloon type thing I was using was not cooperating. So once it started falling apart, I filled the holes with these washers temporarily to help support the back end while I'm soldering. I am now filling in the gaps between the beads. That you don't want to do like around one bead completely all at once because the heat from the solder, like I've said in like all my other videos, when you only wrap around the edge of a piece of glass, there's really not a whole lot holding that foil to the glass, because usually with stained glass you end up putting solder on the top and the back of it because that's where the foil is. It wraps all the way around. But because I'm only foiling the edge, these beads are not all that secure. They don't really get very much solder holding it together, so it's really dependent on the stickiness of the foil. And if you heat up the foil too much, it'll heat all the way around the circle, and then the glass will like just fall out. So yeah, don't work on one too much. Kind of go to another area or go to the other side of something. Even trying to be really, really careful. I did have a couple of these pop out. And then when one pops out, you have a choice. You can either just put another one that's maybe a little bit smaller in its place to fill that spot, or you can remove the foil and everything from that particular area and just start over in that area. So that's, really, really up to you. And, it's different times. I might do it differently. But as you can see, if I had foiled all the way around these designs, then I would have no longer had a circle because they're so little. These beads are usually the smallest beads were 8 millimeters, although I had some that were only 6 millimeters in diameter. So those really small ones that you see me using in spaces are, a lot small, like the guy right on the top right there, on the top right-hand corner. That guy's only like 6 millimeter, so they're really quite small. And the largest ones I've found are 12. So even the 12 millimeter shapes are not terribly large. Most people work with larger pieces of glass. It's just kind of fun to have just a little project, and I'm going to light this with LEDs. It's going to be a little Christmas ornament just to kind of decorate the house, and it's always fun to do that. Another good thing with making small projects like this is, you doesn't take over your whole house. I guess you could also, sell them or give them away if you made bigger projects, but I have limited space, so most of mine I give away or I hang in my house. I've sold a few, but I'm not really into that. So that little guy right there by the end of my on the right-hand side there, that would be the 6 millimeter, that little teeny red flower. He's really small, and like I got a small assortment of them, and I use them for little spaces. So that's like the top of one of these silicone balloon type things. You can see at the top, I kind of like, oh, look, that guy's loose. So that guy, if I can, maybe if I put a glob of solder on that red one that's loose, I can just try to hold it together, but it might just fall right out. Now that I've cooled that area, I can hope that that red one will stay in, but I don't have a lot of faith. Sometimes if a little bit of solder gets like overlapped, you can make the little piece of glass stay in place, but not necessarily because they're not all that secure. If one falls out when you're completely done with your project, you could glue it in place if you wanted to. So now I'm trying to pull out my armature, and that's the stuffing that I use. It's like white polyfill type of stuffing. And so I'm pulling that out, and I stuffed it quite a lot. As you can see, I like to stuff them pretty securely. Another thing that's nice about using like a silicone base and then stuff it is that you can use push pins or straight pins to help hold your object in place while you are working on it, because you have you have an armature that is pliable for that. So I'm putting my tweezers inside and just kind of like twisting the tweezers around to try to get all that stuff, because there's a lot of stuff in there. So I'm getting, as you can see, the pieces of the silicone ball. I'm just kind of like peeling them off the inside, and I'm looking inside of it, and I'm trying to get all those washers that I used, because there were a bunch of washers, and I have those like orangish washers. There's some that fell out, and then I have the smaller clear washers that I'm using. At the top, I wanted to have a nice circle top to kind of hold everything together at the top. And this is where I'm going to hang my ornament, and I'm also going to stuff some LEDs inside of it. And you can see inside right there, if you look hard, you can see that there's still a washer inside of it that I'll have to get out. Obviously, if I leave stuff on the inside, once I light my ornament, it's going to be kind of opaque in that area because of the objects on the inside. I also want to, if there's any like globs of solder that happen to fall on the inside, I want to try to get those out before I consider it done, because those globs of solder will obviously show up. Like right there, I just dropped a piece of solder on the inside. I'm going to have to try to get that piece out if I can, so that I don't have globs on the inside. Now I'm like looking around the outside of my project, and if there's any areas that I neglected filling in, I am now filling them in. Now there are times when I would make a project like this and I would leave I would just tack them all together and leave those gaps in between everything as part of the design, and the lights would just shine through those gaps. The reason I'm not doing that on this one is because the Millefiori beads themselves, although they're transparent in places, they're not a terribly thin glass, and I didn't want to have really bright lights coming out between them all, and then just a dullness where the little flowers were. So I figured if I fill in perfectly so that I don't have any cracks between them, then that'll force any light that I have to shine through the glass itself, which is what I wanted. I wanted pretty little flowers shining through. I also use flashlights at times, shining on the inside and sometimes on the outside to really highlight any areas that I have missed. Because what I don't want to do is fill this up with LED lights and then find out I have holes and I have to take all the lights out and fix all the holes. So that was one thing. And when I put the lights in this, I really had to like push them hard in because I had a string of 100 LED lights, and because I couldn't find a place that I could buy corded fairy lights, LED fairy lights that was a smaller string. I guess I could have cut the string and made it so that it wasn't so many lights. But, you know, I kind of like having a lot of lights in there, but I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't be able to fit 100 LED lights in it. Okay, so right now I made a little loop out of my 18 gauge wire, and I am soldering this little loop. I want to have, you know, maybe three, maybe four, depending on what it's going to look like, little loops around it to help hang it, because I want to be able to hang this up on a little chain, and I could just have it hung up with the lights themselves, but I usually like to have a chain also so that the weight of it's not just on the lights. So I'm trying to solder this on. I'm holding it with tweezers. I'm soldering, and I did have to buy a new iron. This iron is getting really bad. So as you notice, it's pretty bad. But you know, the iron tips don't last forever. That's understandable. So this is me putting a flashlight on the inside, and I'm trying to see if there's any gaps in my design. And if there are gaps, I'm going to fill them in. Or if there's any like pieces of foil visible still, I will fill that in. After I'm done doing all this, I'm going to wash it thoroughly, and then I put a black patina on it so that it's it's actually a copper patina, so that it's dark and kind of, it doesn't look that dark here, but it is. It's a dark spaces between them. And then I put in, as I said, my 100 LED lights, and I really like the way this ornament ended up being. And then the lights flashed. Well, thanks for watching, and have fun creating things. Bye.